Happy Friday, aloha from Ohio, and welcome to today's Friday Tech Bites. The V Mistress of Disaster is back with me. Melissa, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. We're dual casting today. We are a slight bit late on the start. Sorry about
Little
that.
bit of a disaster. It's a good thing we
Oh,
had a
wait,
DR plan where we have four different streaming platforms. So
that's
as
right.
long as one works, we're good to
We
go.
we had quorum. We had two out of the four. So the cluster will go on, right? So yeah, the topic today is disaster recovery. Oh, funny, in the cloud. I guess we'll put social media
That
in
kind of
that.
kind of works, doesn't it?
Indeed, but we will get this posted in LinkedIn explicitly as an event, and then always forever after on YouTube. But we are live on Twitter and Facebook at this time. But Melissa still representing Jersey.
Yep.
I'm representing Aloha from Hawaii. No, how about Ohio? Got Hawaii on the
Close
mind
enough.
now. But let us know where you're from in the chats on the streams that we've got. We might have to go deep here today and get it lit up. But we also have a producer in Massachusetts and another producer in Romania. They are keeping us honest here today. So, Melissa, you
Yeah,
came up with this topic. DR
I
to the
did.
cloud is no
I did.
joke. And we did a little poll. Tell us a little bit about kind of like what we were asking in the LinkedIn poll.
So, we were just kind of asking, and Rick, I can't actually read the screen, so I'm just
Oh,
warning you. Uh, we were asking, what is the most common form of disaster you're seeing out there? And I think the options were, I can't read
unplanned. Yeah.
them.
What are the reasons? Unplanned outages, natural disasters, human error, or ransomware.
Yes, and the winner was, of course, ransomware because ransomware is, in fact, a disaster.
Indeed, indeed. And, the LinkedIn poll was a really good vehicle for us because it kind of gauges customer interest. And since you can't read on there, well, you can read, you just
I
can't read
can't, no,
this.
my eyes, not so good.
Yeah, but human error and ransomware were just neck and neck and neck. And
And isn't it funny that I believe we said in one of our reports that we did lately, we did a ransomware trends report, and like the most common way that ransomware gets in is someone clicks on something, right? So that's kind of human error too, just saying.
Yep, yep, the human firewall for sure. And the other thing I'll say is that a lot of times disaster recovery plans are built around fire, flood, and blood. But at
This
least
is true.
by this brief survey, that was only 6% of the near 1,000 LinkedIn responses, right? So pretty interesting data points, I think, really. So you ready to get into it?
I'm ready.
All right, so yes, we are back. The I don't know what you want to call this combination on Friday Tech Bites, but the VMIS and Ricatron are back. So let's get into it. So, Melissa, you've coined this term, ransomware is a disaster, and we have a pretty new banner to go with it. But tell us kind of why you really pontificate on that.
Yeah, and I really do hammer this home, and there's different schools of thought on this. But my background, I've been doing a lot of DR stuff at Veeam since I got here, actually. And when the ransomware threat just kept increasing and increasing, I saw a lot of customers struggling. Well, where do I even start? Like, how do I get ready to recover from ransomware? Where do I start? And the truth is, the best starting point you have for ransomware recovery is your disaster recovery plan with a couple caveats, right? It has to actually be up to date. It has to be thoroughly tested, and it has to be recently tested, right? So with those three things, your disaster recovery plan is a great starting point for ransomware recovery. So ransomware is a disaster. So what we're going to talk about today, disaster recovery, ransomware recovery, are really kind of interchangeable.
Indeed, indeed. And I think that a lot of times there's going to be a question, okay, disaster is something that we need to prepare for. It is going to happen. But where? Well, where can we recover? And
Yeah.
this is a really big thing, Melissa, because especially if you take the ransomware angle, you might not be able to go back to where you came from or what you planned for.
So I've actually seen something kind of horrifying out in the wild lately is a lot of people are saying, okay, for cyber recovery, we recover in place, which is great and makes a lot of sense. However, what if you have law enforcement involved and they've quarantined your environment and said, guess what, you can't touch this till we finish our investigation? Or we all know I have a heavy VMware background, right? And there are strains of ransomware that target ESXi. So if you've been hit by ESXi ransomware, well, where are you going to recover to? You're not recovering to ESXi because it's not working. So the big difference between a traditional disaster, where you could pretty much know, okay, here are my recovery options, I'll go here, and nothing would change, is that every ransomware attack is different. We don't know what we're dealing with until it actually happens. So I might recover in place. That might not work for ransomware. I might say I'm going to go to my DR site, and that might not even work for ransomware because what if that was compromised too? So then we need to start thinking of things like maybe service providers or even cloud as a recovery option, right? Places that are not a part of our network that cannot be kind of violated by hackers, right? The chances of a hacker breaching a hyperscaler cloud as part of your ransomware attack is actually pretty slim, right? So we need to start looking at these alternate recovery locations and testing them so we know on disaster day, okay, ransomware hit, here's where we can recover, here's where we can't recover. We're going to go here and we know how much time it's going to take us.
Yeah, that's a fair shout. So same source would be the first icon, then different data center or the cloud. And I really like,
or that could be like a co-location facility or whatever, right?
And I one thing I'll highlight on the Veeam side, it's built into everything we do, is that all of the backups, now especially the image-based backups, we can do conversions on the fly.
Yes.
Physical to virtual, virtual to cloud, cloud to virtual. Oh boy.
We don't care. We can go anywhere basically.
To everything to VMware, like in a service provider. Mm-hmm. And I really can't emphasize the value of those service providers because there might be a time that you need.
Let's call the middle one service provider, co-location facilities, whatever, right?
Like if you need an IaaS platform stat, those are a really good place to go. And, again, the cloud isn't always something that starts with A or G, right? So that's, and then why does the cloud kind of pop up and
we kind of coined this session as a little bit of a joke because I'm not known for my love of cloud for many reasons. I think we should have a whole episode on that. But the cloud, like I said, it's not likely to be part of your ransomware attack, right? The three big clouds are not going to get attacked along with you. And honestly, it can be a cost-effective place to keep your backups and a cost-effective place to get up and running very quickly. And again, it's a site that is not linked to you, that people won't have control of. And it's actually pretty easy to get there with Veeam, right? So when everything's not working and you don't know what to do and you don't know where to go, the cloud is there ready and waiting to receive your workloads. This doesn't mean that you should just not plan anything and not test anything, because you still need to plan properly for the cloud. You still need to test recovery. You still need to do all those things you would do if you were just going to your second data center or a different data center. But it's always there. It's just always there.
Yeah, it's a persistent option. And one thing I forgot I should also mention is could fit in a cloud bucket, or maybe it doesn't. Let me know. Solutions like VMware Cloud on AWS, Azure VMware
that
Solution,
fits in the cloud bucket too.
Google VMware Engine, right? And for each of those, by the way, for the listeners, those are fully supported. I shouldn't say fully. There's a few minor limitations, but those are great targets that are supported for backup and replication tasks.
Especially if you're looking at building this DR plan. And we all know I love my VMC, so I have to throw in a little bit about that. Especially if you're not necessarily used to using the hyperscaler clouds yet, right? The last thing you want to do is log into a hyperscaler the first time on disaster day and try to figure out how to use it. If you kind of need that place in between, VMC can be a great solution. Most of your skills will transfer directly over, and you can skip that kind of learning curve for now.
Disaster day, I like that.
Disaster day.
But I think preparation is really part of it. So talk to us a little bit about what you recommend people to do.
Preparation is everything for any kind of disaster, right? We need to prep. But if we're talking specifically about a cloud recovery situation, there's a couple things that we really need to keep in mind. And this might be something that now you're going to add to your current disaster recovery plan, right? Because, hey, I'm used to going to site 2, but what if site 2 is compromised too? So first and foremost, I love how you highlighted disaster day. First and foremost, find a cloud that meets your requirements, right? Not all clouds are equal. There's not one that's better than the other. It's what are your unique requirements for your organization and what makes the most sense for you. And what makes sense for your organization might not make sense for someone else's. But the first thing you need to do is pick that cloud so you can get comfortable with it. Like I said, you don't want to be logging in to the cloud on disaster day for the first time. You want to get used to it. You want to get some basic operational skills. And most importantly, you want it set up properly to receive the workload. So you want to have all that networking ironed out, all that kind of stuff. The next big thing is to have a copy of your backup data in that cloud you're going to recover to, right? We want to have our data there already for the quickest recoveries. We don't want to worry about, oh, I've been ransomware. Well, let me go copy data to the cloud to recover. No, we want multiple copies of our data and we want one waiting for us. So we could just have to basically click the go button, right? And then, of course, test recovery for disaster day. We need to know that we're able to meet our RPOs and RTOs. And we just need to test it, right? That's the only way. And that's very important, especially if you're kind of new to public cloud, right? It's a great opportunity to get in there, kind of use it more and train your staff on it. So it's just kind of find your cloud, get a copy of your data there, and test those restores before you actually need them.
Yeah, that's, there's so much to unpack there. And you're right, Melissa. I was going in, I have open on the other screen. I'm like making it bold, underlining and changing colors to emphasize. I'm always having fun when we're live. But this is a really good recommendation, I think, because I've been there. I remember one time when I, at one of my roles as a practicing IT pro, a smaller disaster, but you get the little shaky hand and the CIO's looking right over your shoulder.
That's like the story I tell all the time. Do you really want to be there not knowing what you're doing? Like on disaster day? No, you don't, because you're going to be stressed out.
Indeed. Disaster day. And, speaking of preparation and speaking of new, there's something new I want to highlight that, is coming, right?
Mm-hmm.
This was really built into our storyline at VeeamON. I had the privilege of demoing this on the main stage, object storage everywhere. And this is a gateway to so many things, Melissa. I mean, like overnight with Veeam, object storage is basically going to become a first-class citizen for that first copy of backup data. So, let me unpack what we're looking at here. The scale-out backup repository, we had a couple of previous episodes on that. It's a software-defined backup storage, so secondary storage system at the management level. So Veeam is the management of where these storages go, these data profiles for backups go. And I should also go one step further. The scale-out backup repository is a supported target in Veeam world for image-based backups. Okay, so that means, VM backups, physical server backups, they can go to the SOBR, or the scale-out backup repository. Now, with version 12, the performance tier is supported for object storage. This is really encouraging because the first stop for backup data can be object storage, and it can be on-premises unified storages. In fact, there are like 21, if I look as of today, Veeam-ready object with immutability targets that can be that first stop. And then we can still use the hyperscalers onward, but it doesn't have to be the public cloud, but it becomes a natural choice, right? I think, the Amazons, the Azures, the Googles of the world come to being, preferred targets there. But what's your angle here on a DR?
Yeah, so the angle was I definitely wanted to show V12 because we're coming right off of VeeamON where we spent a lot of time talking about that. The only difference today is the performance tier cannot be object storage, right? You need your traditional backup repository. You can make that immutable on commodity hardware with the hardened repository from Veeam, right? There's a lot of different ways to do it. But that first stop as it stands today is not object storage. And to me, that doesn't really change anything right now, right? Because I can immediately have my backups copy to the cloud right after they finish. So they'll finish there and they'll just start copying to the cloud as it stands today. And you really want to get a copy to the cloud you're going to recover to. And you know what? I really like some of these options because some of them are immutable, some of them aren't. I know personally I might have been ransomware. I think I'm at my year ransomware anniversary. I remember it was in June, Rick. I think it was in June. I had my Cloud Lab ransomware in the public cloud. And I actually recovered from, and guess what? My backup repository was literally part of my backup server, and that's what was encrypted. So, oh no, we're in trouble. Except that I had a copy of my backup data in Azure, actually. So it took me, I timed it, 7 minutes to start recovering. And the only reason was I couldn't remember where to find like the storage key in Azure or whatever like that. So you just want to get a copy, at least one copy into the cloud you're going to recover to. If you have a multi-cloud strategy, put a copy in all of your clouds, right? It's so easy to do. It's very cost effective. And it's an extra kind of insurance policy of, okay, where am I going to recover when, what happens, and all of that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, a lot to unpack there of good practical advice. Now, I love the idea of just making every backup copy immutable. And so in the Veeam,
I do too.
yeah,
I can't lie. I think everything should be immutable whenever possible.
the,
But if
in
not, you can always make another copy immutable immediately, right?
Exactly. And so today, the public AWS S3 supports it, as well as a shed load of S3 compatible systems. But I do have one, and it's reasonable to expect at some point Azure immutability will be supported. Can't really give a timeline for that at this time, but we'll have more of these lock boxes, sprinkled through the diagram here. But one thing I'll highlight, it's real important, Melissa, and for the audience, if you're putting backup data in the public cloud, I highly recommend that you encrypt it with your own encryption, your Veeam encryption, or someone else will do it for you. Okay?
I was just going to say that. You beat me to it.
That's my tagline.
I know.
Though. That's mine. It's so true, So you want to put your own encryption plane on there, right? So definitely think about that. And then, of course, secure the account, like with some of the network shaping or the different, accesses that you need, public bucket, leaky bucket. You don't want to be that bucket. The other thing I'll highlight about this model, by the way, is that this is really clutch for things like Azure VMware Solution and VMware Cloud on AWS, absolutely. Because you can, reverse the paradigm. Let's suppose you go to that disaster model on disaster day. VMC is now production. Well, this is actually super clutch because the backup target could still be that AWS S3 target or Azure Blob target. And you don't have to take some of the vSAN storage or the block storage within your VMC.
Oh, I remember I've done weird stuff like make LUNs and stuff like that for backup repositories and stuff.
Yeah, the cloud is just easier.
It does simplify things.
You're coming around. She's coming around, guys. I'm telling you. You should hear what she says.
I wonder if there's a reason why I came around, Rick. What do you think?
Maybe it has something to do with something else that's coming, right?
So as I mentioned, we did a lot of things on vMon around new products that are coming out. So, backup replication version 12, Veeam 1 version 12, and Veeam Disaster Recovery Orchestrator 6, we actually gave a sneak preview for the first time ever. And if we take a look at what's coming in Veeam Disaster Recovery Orchestrator 6, we have, there's actually a ton of different features coming. But I want to focus on the three big ones, one of which is Cloud DR, or the ability to actually automatically recover to public cloud. So that might be why I've been starting to come around recently, is that Orchestrator can actually recover you to the cloud, fully documented, of course. Clean DR is the ability to scan for ransomware during a disaster recovery test or during a recovery. And Agent DR simply means that now we can recover Veeam agent workloads directly into VMware. So that's just three of the big new features coming that all kind of lend themselves to kind of that ransomware story, right? If something happens, I can go to the cloud if I need to because I have a copy of my data there, right? I can scan for ransomware and, I can recover those agents to VMware. So it's kind of exciting.
Melissa, a lot to unpack here as well. To put it in one word, this is baller. Okay.
It is.
And what's really interesting is for most of the new releases of the Orchestrator product, the major version releases were all about a new primitive data mover like CDP or storage snapshots or backups, right? This is additional capabilities that builds on those other plans. And
I guess we could count the cloud as technically another data mover, maybe. But this is like, no joke, the biggest release of Orchestrator yet, right? Usually we get like one big feature and some really cool like UI enhancements or usability changes, but these are like three big core features, and there are still like a ton of UI changes. There's a new awesome dashboard. The reports have been reworked. Like there's so much coming in this version. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, I love, you and I both are parents. we're gonna have to do pick your child here. Which one of these would be your favorite?
You're cheating because I did this in the VeeamON session.
I didn't watch
already.
it yet. I'm
you
sorry.
didn't watch it
Yet. Did you catch that?
I can't pick a favorite orchestrator feature. That's impossible. I'm not gonna do it. I
I'm
can't
gonna
pick a favorite child either.
Okay, I'm gonna go clean DR because that's just.
I have deja vu. Go watch the session after this, and then you'll know why. Okay, so if you pick clean DR and you're forcing you to pick, I will go with Cloud DR.
I can get behind that. And the agent DR.
That's pretty cool too.
Yeah, in fact,
especially for one really nerdy reason here, VMware Converter is now no longer supported. So if you do still have physical workloads that you want to convert to VMware, you can throw an agent on them, back them up, test them before you actually convert them, and then convert them over. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, in fact, this capability, shout out Tim Smith, Ohio. He was using some PowerShell commandlets within the orchestrator product to do this onesie twosie. I don't know if you know that.
Mm-hmm.
And the thought was, well, if we can do it onesie twosie by hand, what if the product did it for us? And I want to highlight to everyone that the orchestrator product, sure, has these plans, has these new capabilities coming, but the kind of orchestration engine behind it is the gateway to so much more. I remember right before we hired Melissa, I was making the orchestrator product tweet.
You were tweeting it, making it
yeah,
tweet,
exactly.
I've made it respond to Slack messages and stuff like that. There's lots of crazy things you can do.
Yeah, you know,
make it do anything.
Yeah, now there's an API. At the time, I was just using Python, but you don't want me scripting. You really don't. But it's just, you know, again, the art of the possible, really a hub of that is this product. So it's nice to see the capabilities being born in that regard and then making its way from creative use cases. So keeping it short and sweet on Friday Tech Bites here. Now, you mentioned your VeeamON session.
Yes.
So that one, by the way, is available for the binge watch straight away. So you can go over to veeamon.com and get Melissa's longer session there. I did a few I did one on some Azure sessions, and there's some AWS content. So the cloud in general is available. Some of the V12 sessions are available. I will say that some of the stuff that happened at the in-person VeeamON, that would be on your Tuesday watch list, because on June 7th, you know, let the secret be known, on June 7th, we're going to drop a bunch of the sessions from Las Vegas to the virtual platform. And I think it's June 22nd will be the rest. I can't quite remember. But the thought is we want to like re-engage people, especially those who didn't attend on the virtual platform. But there's an incredible library. Did you do a VeeamON session too?
I did, yes.
Or I should say as well.
I did a VeeamON version 12 session, and then Kirsten and I did a ransomware session focused on backup and replication. VeeamON and Veeam Disaster Recovery Orchestrator all working together to protect you from ransomware.
Hashtag trifecta. I remember that.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely a lot of content here on the disaster recovery side of things. And then, you know, a couple of and one of them's mentioned the session at the bottom here.
And the other thing I want to mention is the 2022 Disaster Recovery Trends Executive Brief. So we do these massive research studies at Veeam where we work with an independent organization to survey real-world IT professionals. We do a huge data protection report, and you've heard a lot about it on the Monday show with Jason and Dave, but I actually took a cut of the data with Jason and reworked it specifically for disaster recovery, right? So there's a lot of really interesting information to kind of help you get a little fuel for the fire for really beefing up those disaster recovery plans. And one of them is basically just proving that ransomware is a disaster to help you get that budget you need.
Indeed. And so good hat tip coming up on Monday, the Industry Insights Show, episode 2 of 6 on the ransomware report debrief with Jason and Dave. That was big press release type news at VeeamON. They're going through it in incredible detail. You want to tune in for that. 12 o'clock New York time. So
maybe I'll do another brief on disaster recovery for ransomware and ransomware recovery specifically. That could be interesting.
That would be interesting. I'd actually be very curious if we could slice even more on things like how many times could people not restore where they wanted to? Again, this is the theme that we took for this episode, right? So good shout. Melissa, pleasure as always. Thanks for
always a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right. And a big thanks to Sir William up in the Massachusetts region, and then Katie out in Romania, our producers. We couldn't do it without them. So thank you both for helping us bring this content to you. And on behalf of the whole Veeam team, have a great weekend. And that concludes this episode today.